Welcome to another Quantum Conversation. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to be with you all as we culminate this beautiful Quantum Conversation Summit series, Timelines, Creating the Highest Benevolent Outcome. And it's so beautiful and fitting that today we have Reverend Devi Grace, who is really someone who is Gaia's Oracle. And she is a walk-in as well and brings forth such divine wisdom. And today we're talking about the Magdalene timeline and such a beautiful arc of grace. We're going to learn about that and why it's important for this time. Let's welcome Devi Grace. Hi, Devi. Thank you for being here. Welcome.
Oh, well, thank you and congratulations on all of the phenomenal and incredible transmissions that have already come through this summit so far. And it's a pleasure to be reunited with this soul family again for this broadcast.
Yes, I absolutely love this topic. It has been so eye-opening. It has been one that has allowed us to understand timelines, to see how we're creating timelines, whether we know it or not, and to really command a timeline, to really take full responsibility for the vibration that we hold and all of it. And so when we're talking about this timeline, the unveiling the royal arc of grace, the timeline with source code origins, this is really returning to the essence of who we are. Can you share with us your understanding of timelines and this arc of grace, the timeline with source code origins? What's this about?
Well, the purest or easiest way to welcome our family into this realization is through the archetype of Mary Magdalene as an initiated goddess of the Divine Mother. So this is really the divine feminine timeline. And one of the attributes that she received from Isis or Sophia or Shekinah or Asherah, all her many names, was the ability to fully be present. And this is a lot for a human consciousness to really receive. So even if I describe something that doesn't make sense to your left brain, please know that your heart knows exactly what I'm talking about. Magdalene was shown in that quantum unified field, literally how to sit with every possible timeline that was available in every human choice point that was presenting itself at that particular coordinate in what we call the space-time matrix, with the caveat of also being able to see that golden thread of which timeline genuinely was going to serve the highest and best good for all life and living. Now, that golden thread is gifted to her, not because she is seeing with the eye of the creatrix of all that is, as a daughter of Isis, as a manifestation of the embodiment of the Divine Mother that every woman's body carries. She was gifted that capacity to attenuate, to attune to that timeline, which literally serves her highest and best good, the highest and best good of the planet that she was residing upon, and the highest and best good of every living sentient intelligence upon the body of the entire, global sphere. So that's about as impeccable as it gets. And then Magdalene also received all of that training and initiation of how to then apply that awareness, of that clarity of, oh, this is the timeline that yields what we would call the resurrection of this planet, aka biological ascension. So she's pristine in her focus, and it's never been about her. And So that ability to attune to infinite fractals, right? And sit within the silence in all of these extensions. Which one am I being invited into that then has the most positive ramifications for every existence on this planet and beyond? Because, of course, Mary Magdalene's also from Venus. She's a star woman, and her heritage is in the Venusian temples. That's been documented, by many, many other authors. So there's this realization that when we own our cosmic heritage, Magdalena is obviously attuning to her galactic, her showing her with these very advanced quantum technologies how to then steward the most powerful manifestation of love in any given moment. And then that means she's walking the brilliance of the end of life review. The name of the game is how much love can you bring to any situation, regardless of the triggers or the stimuluses or the doubts or the fears or the insecurities of any of the other parties. There is this devotion and commitment. Well, more love is required here in this now moment, and I'm going to be the conduit through which it expresses its incorporation into this configuration so that we can yield that more loving result. And that is, to Magdalene's credit, really her genius. It's like she walked into very precarious, situations again and again and again. And she literally, it's not going to be in English, right? I speak also right brain languages. Right? Again, your heart, right brain, knows what I'm saying. And through her presence in that moment, became a vessel for that love and that grace or that support or that assistance to energetically be incorporated as an ingredient so that the outcome could elevate into that higher timeline. We reach these higher timelines because these attributes of consciousness are being provided. So whether that's compassion or empathy or forgiveness or whatever the ingredient of that vibratory resonance is, it's literally co-created. And all it takes is one human brain to bring the missing ingredient. And so that's how this order of the Magdalene, because of course Mary Magdalene didn't steward this as an individual. She has many, many sisters and many other adepts that were also initiated in the Divine Mother temples for thousands and thousands of years. This is the descension of the light into the darkness. And that's not a judgment on the human race. It's just the realization that a lot of humanity fell into that density, right? So if your view is somewhat restricted, you can't look up. And so there's a, shadow veil. And so the Magdalene order, which wasn't just the women, also we have manifestations, right, of the men, the high priests of the Sophianic principle. And these are in the higher Rosa Mystica lineages. They agreed to look up in any situation so that assistance could be provided to navigate whatever the hairy, right, turn point, choice point, bank point is, so that it can smooth itself out and come to a more positive unfoldment, shall we say. And it's not that they got it perfect. I know some people, just love the film Groundhog Day. We giggle with Bill Murray. A lot of us, right, have had Groundhog Day experiences where if you don't get it on the first round, you're given, more than one opportunity to refine, right, that realization in that moment where that precision of the laser of love is required. So any initiate, right, of the lineages of the Divine Mother and the Divine Father, which is that embodiment of source creation light, they had their fair share of Groundhog Day training. And that's just the fact that we're divine children. You don't have to get it perfect. you can goof and, revisit that timeline. And can I do a redo? And absolutely, there's that space to grow and learn because you don't have to get it all at once. So I know that's a lot. However, I'm just being as authentic as I possibly can because these are really, really advanced abilities, and they are a part of what our human capacity is able to achieve if we're willing to believe that this level of mastery is actually genuine. So I may sound like I'm talking about science fiction, right? It's truth is stranger than fiction. So if you could just give me a little bit of, those of you that might have some skepticism, just cut me some slack because I'm opening doors that might forever enrich the grand totality of what's available to us in any given moment. And then I'm well pleased. That's why they call us a rebel. I'm a rebel for bringing in more light, even if it sounds radical, because I can hear some people saying like, oh, this is a bit much. I know it sounds radical. However, thank heavens, it's actually real. So if you can be with that, both and, it's kind of a paradox.
I think that we can be with that, and because we're in it whether we know it or not, because we have in every moment that point where we can show up and be frustrated or triggered by something externally, or we can do what you're saying and do it the Magdalene way, which is to look up and see another way to show up in love. And I love what you said about sitting in the extension of all the love that we can bring. That was so beautiful. And attuning to our infinite fractals of love. And so it is up to us in every moment to show up in a different way of love. And it was very interesting. I just came back from Mount Shasta, and that was the prevalent theme. How can we, in the face of everything, do something that is extraordinarily different in showing up in love, doing the unexpected in love? And so after, I'll say, activation in Shasta, because of that activation and why we're here today talking about this now, I could literally see, because I was in a vibrational place that was very different, interacting with people in the airport, the young gal behind the counter serving coffee, or the TSA agent, showing up in ways like that, just saying a hello, or I like your earrings, or just asking a question, opened up the whole field. And this is important on our time. So what you're saying really resonates. And I know everyone watching and listening resonate with it as well. And it's so easy to see out in the collective how we get dragged out of that vibration if we choose to look at something that doesn't feel right. But this is where our mastery comes in, right? And so share with us a little bit about looking up in every situation. I love that. You already talked about that, but this year, what's going on in the energies of this year that allow this to be more accessible? It really is a blending of our internal energies. We've talked about this, but can you share more on the power of this year and what we're moving through?
Well, I truly bow in reverence to the indigenous elders on this planet, and in their collective genius, they have brought to the human race a term called the bifurcation of the timelines. And the translation of that is available through, other messengers like Lisa Renee with energetic synthesis, or Ishmael Perez, or Shakina and Sananda of Twin Ray. And this is prophecy from the grandmothers and the grandfathers of multiple indigenous tribes that have seen this planet go through this greater birth in the shedding of her exoskeleton. So very similar to like a nautilus shell, like when you outgrow the old shell and grows its next home, or like a lobster, right? When you outgrow the old shell, or even like a hermit crab, you outgrow the old shell and you got to get a new home. The planet is outgrowing her shell. And the bifurcation means that there is this dispensation of grace. Thank you, creation. That as enough hearts on this planet are choosing to return home to wholeness, that regardless of those independent free will choices that may or may not be aligned with the principles of love or harmony or balance, right, or union, that those that have that resolve and resolution within every fiber and every cell of their body and being to choose love get to have that environment on this planet open up to a unified expression of embodied love, and that we're no longer fettered or hindered by what you would call those other choice points that maybe other members of the current planetary residents are experiencing. And that means that this planet is going to go into that bifurcated divergence. And those of us that are allowing love to be our guiding force or our operating system will be able to graduate out of what we would call the density of stark contrast. As it stands now on the planet, right? There's these two principles of union and separation, and it's always kind of been, night and day and yin and yang. There's always been some form of, the contrast of polarities. And so we're accustomed to that because that's, been the gig for a really, really long time. The bifurcation of the timelines means that that old way of learning through stark contrast, we get to evolve out of that Earth School curriculum and move into higher states of peak potentiation that don't require the duality, right? To give us that incentive, right? To elevate our learning curve. And therefore, those beings that are more aligned with what you would call the chaos principle, which is available in the cosmos, then they're free to have that experience so that we're not infringing on that quote unquote aspect of free will. The grace pass is that usually, right, we're somewhat at the effect of the collective miasmas, the morphogenetic field of the collective choice points. And so this arc of grace bifurcation of the timeline means that if there's a core group of us that are just choosing, right, to graduate now, that passage is available to us kind of like in an escorted elevator trajectory. And that's why it looks like a wormhole or a portal or a stargate that the planet and those of us that are ready in that readiness get to travel through those stargates and embark on that, next phase of our discovery process, which is super exciting because again, it kind of sounds like interstellar science fiction, and yet it's grounded, of course, in the earth-based wisdom of these indigenous practices that are, very grounded in earth and air and wind and fire, and they're seeing this. And that's why they are the chosen messengers, particularly the Kogi Nation out of Colombia. And it constitutes respect and honor and reverence for all life. And those that are operating in respect and reverence and honor for all life, those are the prerequisites for the graduation trajectory.
Wow.
And that means that the rest of us, right, we don't have to process all of that collective ancestral trauma or collective archetypal, right? Schisms or the debris, right, of all those previous choice points, right? That's got quite a database. there's the neutralization. That's why they call it the zero pointing of the old Akashic records. So the bifurcation of the timelines is basically the zero pointing of the old Akashic records. And we just say thank you. And no, you'll never be able to fully explain it to a rational left human brain. And that's okay, because there's again, the humility before the great mystery. It's a gift.
Wow. Okay. It's so beautiful. This is an activation listening to you, because our hearts hear it and feel it. And our mind may be like, oh, I got so many questions. One of the questions that I came up with is
Mhm.
of a stargate, and
Mhm.
the stargate. Can you explain a stargate? So we have a stargate within us. Is that right? I mean, is it a love portal?
Yes, we do.
Okay, can you explain stargates, and people want to travel in their own stargate or experience that? What is that? Is that taking us to another dimension? Stargates? Is it a love portal? What's going
all of
on?
all of the above.
Okay.
Now we're going to move into archetypal storytelling, as any good shamanic grandmother would do. So let's sit around, right, in the fire of holy remembrance. And in that expression of the archetype of the divine child, if you are told that you can travel instantaneously all the way back to your home star as the divine child, you're going to believe it, because there's no belief system in your human database that tells you that that's not possible. So it's the reawakening of the divine child within us that actually remembers where our stargates are stored deep inside of us. And it's actually in this vortex, the divine child inside of our body, which is why in ancient times, the Hieroscamos technology was the most advanced manifestation of embodied self-love. Because if you know yourself in the highest healthy expression of sacred feminine love, which is the exemplification of the goddess principle, and you know yourself in the highest expression of the divine father's love, which is also protection, right? And safety, all these necessary ingredients. Then there's the trust and the allowance to surrender and let go into something new and magical, and actually go on a magic carpet ride, right? And be taken by the genie of your home star, back to your interstellar relatives that have never left your side, even though you agreed to take on this human robe and walk as a star seed on this planet with these love potentials, right, in your genetic code to help the species literally awaken from its slumbers. So, hello, all starborns. This broadcast is for those of you that are star seeds and starborns, because that's how this would make sense. I'm speaking to you from your ancient future, and therefore this isn't a new concept. These are safety measures that we incorporated into the quest even before any of us left our home star worlds to receive the invitation from Gaia to come and incarnate here. So I'm not saying anything that your eternal consciousness doesn't already remember, because this has already been promised even before, quote unquote, the first wave ever arrived on this planet. And therefore, if you're going to have a free will experiment on the planet, and nobody knows, right, what's going to happen in that free will experiment, because it's an experiment, wouldn't it be smart to, send in there a cosmic safety net? So your divine child is your cosmic safety net, that in any moment you have the capacity to be able to remember how to unlock yourself, right? With those golden keys to your internal divine marriage, your internal hieroscamos, which isn't born of just the divine mother and the divine father, because the two always make the three possible. We've talked about this in other broadcasts, and you're the third. which means if you look at it in terms of twin flame quantum, there's only one twin flame. There's only one twin flame. That's the primordial, right? Mother and father that birthed all of us. And each of us is a hologram of their unified love as the sacred marriage. And we get to see that reflection of their love incarnating as us in this individuation of our source light intelligence. And so there's the fulfillment of the promise. This is magic. Welcome to the Stargate magic of the divine child, realizing, oh, these instructions, right? Like Dorothy, I carry inside of me. So I got to click my heels, right? 3 times and uncover that ruby red magic that I have stored deep, deep down inside of me. And it's not something that any of us agreed to remember alone. So then there's these things called seminars and trainings and workshops. So that what do? We come and gather as a circle to receive our rites of passage and community because we agreed to reactivate this remembrance in partnership with each other. That each of us carries the recollection of how this transpires. And as we gather again as that village or the pod of dolphins or the herd of horses, we drop the human identity of like separateness, of like, oh, I get to reactivate my home star, Stargate, with my brothers and sisters of light. Oh, very cool. Okay, cool deal. So that means no single one of us has to have the whole thing figured out. In some sense, just show up. Just get your butt to that circle. Like you held the hosting, right, in Mount Shasta. Just show up, right? Look up and then step up and fully participate, lean into what's making itself available through that intuitive faculty. Like you don't even have to comprehend it from your left brain. And then there's this enticement, right, of all these other ancient cosmic lineages that are designed to re-stimulate that recollection to light up inside of us with each other in a form of mutual empowerment. Magdalene never presented herself as the primary teacher. Okay, sorry, that's spiritual ego. Okay, Magdalene functions inside of the Grail Queen lineage, which means she bows in reverence to the divinity of every other Magdalene and the brother and sister before her and empowers them to come into their greatness because she knows that they're a holographic reflection of herself. There was zero, right, hierarchy back then. It was in total communion and common unity. And that's why we had at that stage the resurrection of what you would call the masculine Christos. And now, ooh la la, archetypally, we're moving into the resurrection of the feminine Christas. And then the planet will go into the resurrection of the Christosophia, or the hierogamic quantum awakening of the entire planetary body into its full sacred destiny and birthright as an awakened being in the Milky Way galaxy. That's the royal marriage that's been prophesied. So each and every one of us has like a microcosm of this macrocosm go off inside of us. And the reason why we gather is because that stimulates that knowing that that's coming right around the corner on the planet. And we get to be a part of it. And in being a part of it, then we learn how to ride the wave, which means that we become expert surfers of like huge, point blank 40, 50, 60, 70-foot waves, huge energy streams coming in. And with this Hydroscomos technology, right, we can just surf with just impeccable precision and grace. So that's a learned skill set of, awakening these stargates makes it very easy for us to then ride the wave of huge energy influxes. So that if you have, a solar flare that comes in and like levels most of the planet, you're still able, right, to let it undulate and pass through you, and then still be available to assist others around you to accommodate, right, to that influx with more available willingness and trust and openness and availability, which then helps this, what you would call cataclysmic nature of the earlier foreseen earth changes, soften and smooth out and not be so intense, shall we say. So there's a practical geomancy purpose of awakening these stargates inside of our bodies, quote unquote, a little bit before the planet does, so that we become midwives to birth the planet through the earth changes and through running those massive velocities of light through our body with a caress, right? More of a tantric flow. It serves in alleviating a lot of the pressure points, right, at the tectonic plates that are having massive vibrational, right, interfaces that are quite significant. And we can be there and soften them because we've already spiraled that energy inside of our bodies. The easiest metaphor that I can give people, it may sound weird, is study the orgasmic birth movement. And it was started by a girlfriend of mine that talked about most of the species would imagine that the birth process can be fairly painful. And even though there's a lot of collective evidence that that's been the case for, certain pregnancies, that's not the only option that we've witnessed. And if a woman is taught, right, to spin and spiral with those primordial sparks, right, she becomes a vessel of creation itself. And she can begin, right, to transmute and alchemize that intense energy into pleasure rather than pain. And so the principle of the orgasmic birth movement then also applies to planetary guardians or grid workers, right? Or earth angels or ascension initiates, whatever you want to, right, designate yourself. Realize that the stargate within us can open up that orgasmic birth potential, which is primordial and shamanic. Just takes a little bit of training, and that's why we have this rewilding movement. So it's not like, oh, you're just going to open a stargate, because you can. There's training to help you reactivate that rewilding side of you, the rewilding of the god and the rewilding of the goddess, so you can move in those primordial waves and be very adept, like your star ancestors have been. And, that's why we have all of these mythos that stir us into the recollection of, the Black Panther or a Wonder Woman, because they are us in that natural expression. It's just more developed. And if somebody aspires to one of those heroes or sheroes, it means that those codes actually dwell deep inside of us as well. And they're asking them to be ignited with a mentor. So my role, or a Magdalene's role, is to simply be a guide, because the birthing process has already been galvanized in all of the chosen ones, which I have said before is the 777,000 guardians of the original Ark of Grace. So we're quite a crew.
Is it safe to say that anyone watching or listening to programs like this, especially this program with you, is part of that 777,000?
Yes.
We may not know it. Okay. So
and that's all right. That the realization lands in due time.
okay.
And just the navigation of the recovery process can be, cultivated with sensitivity, because for some people, they are absolutely terrified and frightened of their power.
Mhm.
And to know the truth of their divine designation would be absolutely overwhelming. And so that's why I approach, right, with sensitivity and great care. I don't ask people to just, recollect their full magnificence if their human personality would be, very intimidated. It's creating those experiences that are positive and life affirming, that they grow the courage inside of themselves to accept that they're that amazing with support. And then it's still balanced and harmonious with the other levels of their human psyche. And of course, that stargate is not housed within the heart, right? You've got to go through the heart. The stargate's actually always down in the hara and down in the womb, you know. So the stargate's in the Holy Grail. And for women, that's the womb chakra, right? And men, you have a womb chakra, even though it's called the hara. So that's why we have the Tibetan womb pulsing. And that's why the fastest path of awakening in gazillion mystery schools is the womb mysteries for both genders. However, you can't even get down there unless you open the rose or the lotus of your heart. So that's why it's often both the rose and the lotus. Take your pick, open up the lotus in your heart and open up the rose in your hara. It's a both and. It's like a figure eight. And so it's not just the love, right? It's the love and the power. And if you're only embodying down to your heart, you're not in that stargate, which means you got to do all, right, that lower triangle chakra stuff of meeting those edges, right? And what you would call the four lower bodies. And that's okay, because it's nobody's fault that all that data and information is in there, because you inherited all that stuff from your ancestors and your mother's womb, and it's not you. So there's no shame in purifying the lower triangle. It's just due diligence in order to get access to the Holy of the Holies. That's the Holy Grail in men, and Holy Grail in women. It's for both.
Yes, and I have a note here that we really have to be free from the triggers. And you just said it right there. We have to do that work to liberate ourselves so that we can open that heart and the womb together, the lotus of the heart and the rose of the womb. It's fascinating. And so as we gather together to show up and participate, you're actually going to be holding a special online gathering for people to do this. And that's wonderful, because that's how we can show up. And we're going to have you talk more about that beautiful event that's coming up. But I was hoping that you can also lead us in
Yes.
an example of how we can work with this heart chakra and the hara chakra, so that we can get a sense of what that feels like, or some direction to take when working, or any other experience similar to that. Because I think if we do that, we'll really begin to sense our power
Yes.
and be given a roadmap of what we need to do. Right. And so then we know we have to dance and we have to be free and allow these energies to flow through us. But you just gave us a magic recipe there. And that's the
Mhm,
magic recipe, right? That's the mystery school.
mhm.
So do you want to
The
talk?
the other blueprint that I can share before the direct experience is to feel into the realization that the arc of grace timeline is the real Holy Grail.
Beautiful.
And that's not told to you in the Arthurian legends. Okay, this is a very evolutionary relationship with a planetary Holy Grail, and realizing that everything is a frequency And so for enough of us to be able to access, to drink from the cup of life and pour that through your heart and pour that down into your heart and pour that down into your womb, what we're saying is that you allow yourself to be assisted and supported to let go and surrender and be escorted onto that arc of grace timeline as a gift of love. The truth of my second near-death experience then corroborates some of the coordinates. How did this come about? Well, for those of you that have studied children's near-death experiences, children can be extremely stubborn once they've had one near-death experience because they can kind of feel very homesick, right, for their family in the worlds of the celestial relations. And so children oftentimes do not want to come back if they have a second near-death experience. And I was very stubborn and did not want to return after I, journeyed back to my home crew. And so in that stubbornness, it actually was perfect because consciousness knew how stubborn I was. And out of my mouth, before all the councils of light and the end of life review, I basically said, you cannot send me back there until you promise to me that we complete this ascension timeline 100%. I'm not going back. Okay? If it's 99.9%, sure, I'm not going back. Okay? And so because they knew that I had to get back because nobody else could do my job, I had leverage. Right?
Yeah.
And that leverage was like, you had better demonstrate to me that we pull this off successfully 100%. Otherwise, you won't find me returning. And that was my bargaining position. And therefore, right, and this very gutsy 10-year-old on April 22nd, 1983, we ran trillions of timelines. Not millions, not billions, trillions. I said, show me full proof. Show me full proof. What that means is that this is where you get into the self-forgiveness. Okay? Whether we're aware of it or not, that experience of being able to get down into your hara and get down into your womb is through the heart of self-forgiveness. Because some of us have memories where we kind of goofed and maybe screwed up, right? Those previous potential ascension timelines. And so when you look at it through this successful accomplishment and what you would call 100% assured, we did it, okay, then you can have infinite compassion and self-forgiveness for those goofs, right? And so in those trillions of timelines that I ran on Earth Day, 1983, quote unquote, human 10 years old, even if, let's say, 156 other members of the soul family made a mistake, it didn't matter. Consciousness found a way to have, right, the ascension timeline, the arc of grace, succeed. Love found a way. The arc of grace found a way. And so, unbeknownst to all of you, your ancestors are really stressed about, we blew it, right? We missed our opportunity, we screwed up. All is lost, and that's not accurate. So in your subconscious and your unconscious DNA records, right, in the shadow, there's this belief that we can't actually pull it off because we've goofed so many times. So all the arc of grace timeline is basically telling you, and the journey from your heart down to your hara or down to your womb, that the supreme power of love and the supreme power of grace succeeds. So imagine, right, power of love as maybe the divine father, and power of grace as maybe the divine mother, and the divine mother and the divine father flank you on your right side and your left side. And you're the divine child, and you create this trinity, and you put one hand on your heart and one hand down on your hara, one hand down on your womb, and you really get for all your ancestors, all is forgiven. Because guess what? We figured it out. I don't need to carry that illusion of creating the goof that throws the entire timeline into a wobble and takes it off course. Not true, not true, not true. There are other more miraculous divine dispensations of grace, okay, that are interceding now on our behalf, that are available right here, right now, in this year we call 2024 and 2025 and 2026, where all systems go green light. It is inevitable. You can only do this right. And that's what's going to get you down from your heart into your hara and into your womb. So breathe through all of your ancestral layers, through all of your maternal genetic code and all of your paternal genetic code. Oh my gosh. You can only do this right. When all is said and done, at the end of the day, relax. You can only do this right because the purity of intent will get you across the goal line. Is your heart choosing that ascension timeline in your body? Yes? Great. Awesome. Are 89 other percent of you still in the know? Okay, who cares? Love and grace through this divine marriage is going to find a way to absolutely gift you with the transmuting of that 89% that's in your blind spot. It doesn't matter. You don't need to figure it out. You don't need to fix it. You don't need to problem solve. It is done on your behalf. And that's what we mean by just bow to the arc of grace timeline. Because it'll provide what you haven't been able to provide for yourself yet. And this is part of the fulfillment of that original promise, so that if it ever got hard or difficult for our ancestries, that love and grace find a way. And that's what allows the elevator to keep descending. And maybe it's 3 inches, and then maybe 4 inches, and then maybe 5 inches, right? And then maybe 5.5 inches. It's that trust that keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. And it's a daily practice, right? Using that visualization of, am I moving my rose down into my lotus, or am I moving my Excalibur down into my Holy Grail? For me, it was Dr. Rian Eisler's The Chalice and the Athame, right? That sacred sword, the lingam, going down, right, into the yoni of the chalice. That was the formula, and that's that archetypal symbol that happens inside of us, right? The marriage of the Holy Grail and Excalibur in tantric union. And for a lot of people, that's what allows the elevator to go all the way down to hitting that sweet spot. And that's only one of the pathways. There's many, many more.
Mm. Love and grace, it will get us there. And I love that, how when we just surrender to it, the transmutation occurs. And that's beautiful. Okay, so.
And the direct utilization of archetypal symbols in a personal level. How many of you have actually personally taken the Holy Grail into your hand as something that's actually available to assist you with an issue in your life? Not like, oh, I am revering the Holy Grail lineage. Put it in your hand, right? And drink from the cup of life into your own body, because you're worthy. You deserve this support and assistance. And oh, by the way, what's the twin flame of the Holy Grail? Excalibur. Oh my gosh, what does that mean to have Excalibur put in your other hand? Literally, both available to you to address whatever it is that needs to clear, transmute, transform. And then in that divine child curiosity, oh my gosh, I just put the Holy Grail and Excalibur to work inside of my body to purify my shadow. that's like at the level of the miraculous within the miraculous. And so it's taking all of these legends and bringing them to life inside of your body. And that's what the story tales are for, right? How do we live them? How do we become them? Not just that we're stirred with these, epic, amazing accomplishments. It's like that lives inside of us too. And that's usually where people are moved to tears. When they touch the Holy Grail for the first time, or they touch Excalibur, or whatever version of that for you, right? And we have more ancient terms. And then they really get that this is in service to your consciousness. They just weep. Gratitude.
Thank you for sharing on that. We can really sense into it and feel it, and it really does give us the direction. All right, let's do an experiential. May we do an experiential? A few moments is all we need, I suppose. And then we'll have you talk about how people can go deeper in this. Because
Yes.
again, you've got a special event for all of us, and everything's an activation. So even if people don't do that, what we're learning and talking about here today is just as good. But an experiential would be exquisite. Thank you, Devi.
Yes. So the experiential comes through the other languages. So
Yes.
um, open your legs, and if you can, right, tilt your coccyx or your tailbone more up towards the ceiling, and rotate that pelvis. Rock it forwards and backwards, and really say hi to your root, right? And then spiral your hips to the right, turning the cauldron, and then spiral your hips to the left. And then allow what we would call these ancient codes in these other languages to communicate invitations to your body. Open up your crown and feel the sound current wave in from the top of your crown all the way down to your root. Skorske santantai, doske kwakovishe, doko toko kokai, gakum takum kako, ohe kya yakton takye. So the song lines to your ancestors. Gondo shotateyo kontai. Kyaka kokoro sondaye shoye. Arakandaye shoye. Oh shoya tar kore. Parantun shatai kuku. Gestaya. Gongeshu. Gestaya. Let the sound codes, right? Caress yourselves. Lora sankandaya sheshe. Kokoya sunda kokoko. Kita kuntate yukunkai kuntaye. Dora satantia kunko. This is your ancestors to be dancing with, right? To move these light frequencies down through your bodies. See them dancing in circles. Feel that sensuality of them dancing with the whole cosmos. Reste and as everyone is dancing, feel all the warrior guardians also show up and flank the sacred hoop. Stotahitesh, Zatatatanta, Rokotoshishi, Nayatakisha, Feel that protection, feel that guardianship surrounding you. That these holy warriors also support the sanctuary. Sacred feminine dancers, right? Spiraling around the fire. All of the rainbow warriors holding space in that external, pristine field perimeter. Provides the safety literally required to let go. And then through your feet, right? Feel a vine of light coming up from the planet. Whatever golden age you relate to, most familiar to many is Lemuria, where your body already remembers. How to trust and accept and receive. And feel those other multidimensional bodies now swimming and overlaying the current body that you're in and performing a marriage ceremony inside of you. Marry the timelines together inside of you. Allow those timelines to synthesize inside of you. The simplicity of just calling back all of your divine pieces and parts. As each divine piece and part is reincorporated, all of those timelines are brought back into holy vertical alignment. Complete, incorporate. Intention fulfilled. All those timelines converging, intention fulfilled, intention fulfilled. From the pre-birth planning councils, the end of life review, intention fulfilled, unify. Intention fulfilled, unify. And feel that weaving of all these different timelines that you are now. On the bridal chamber of who you be today. And so it is spoken and so it is done. Integration will continue as you listen, right? Later on in Dream Lodge. Not something that fully gels while you're in your waking state. You take this experience also into your Dream Lodge. Allow it to navigate itself through your psyche. We are humbly at your service. That's from, of course, the star ancestors, ancient of ancients, councils of light on behalf. Of your internal and eternal pleasure and enjoyment. Contante, costo.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can feel the magic there. I thank you so much for that. Thank you. I know everyone can feel that. And
it's from them through me. So we say thank you to them.
Thank you to them. Wow. Thank you for this activation. And to know that the Dream Lodge will take us even deeper into it in integration is really wonderful. So we invite everyone to just witness more of how this makes you feel, because the feeling is the key. I feel part of me wants to just weep and cry, but another part of me just knows to accept it, and know that it's real. That to me is my stargate that has been activated. And we can do this. And this is how we do it. This is the roadmap. This is the blueprint. And wow,
And the
I,
practices. Yes, these are the ceremonial arts
Mhm.
practices. And your number one principle of support is the coherence. As the timeline 0 point, what you're experiencing is more coherence. So whether it's in the shamanic framework or the quantum science, it's all happening for a stronger manifestation of oneness and wholeness inside of you. And that's a total gift of grace.
And that's what makes me want to cry when I feel that unification. It opens my heart and it brings tears. I'm not just crying because I'm sad or whatever,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah.
really feel that. And it's so wonderful. Wow. Wow. Okay. So this is how we do it. And this is how, when we come back and bring this back into timelines, this is the directive for creating the highest benevolent outcome, creating the realities that we want. And it is in perfect attunement with Gaia and the cosmos and our ancestors.
Absolutely. and and feel that Gaia herself becomes the Holy Grail on a galactic scale.
Ah,
And
yes.
the cosmos then has a galactic Excalibur. And
Wow.
there is this sacred sexual union between Excalibur, right, as this universal phallus of light, and Gaia being this universal chalice, sangreal, and these levels of consciousness making love to each other. That's planetary ascension, in the Maha Tantra of the celestial worlds and the star nations. So that's common sense where we come from. And so these rituals and reenactments get to be directly experienced within us, just a taste of, right, the amrita that's coming, that's on a much larger scale, so that as it happens we're prepared, right, and we comprehend, oh, this is just a stronger emanation of that same love wave. And then
Okay.
there's that total sense of safety, right, like, oh, I know what this is.
I love that. It's a love wave. We can call it a solar flare or whatever, but it is a love wave. Sometimes it feels like a tsunami. But
Yes,
when
yes,
we
yeah.
this practice, this method that you taught us, this experience really helps us become that surfer on this 70-foot wave.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I've got goosebumps. I really do. And a new understanding, a deeper understanding of this. And I do have to agree, we don't have to do anything except open to this.
Yeah.
And to me, that is magical. So can you see the work that you've done today with everyone here? As everyone watching and listening beholds this and integrates
Oh.
art, that's really
Mm.
powerful. I love it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Thank you. And thank the ancestors and the ancients. Okay. And thank you for those who are bringing this into the heart and the womb and receiving and radiating in this way. So
Yes.
it's wonderful because in just a few days, we have a beautiful opportunity for people to gather together with you in a group setting online.
Yes.
And more of this, it really is what we're calling a cosmic initiation. So share with us more about this event. This is really affordable for everyone. If you can't join live, it's okay because you get the recording. But Debbie, tell us what you've put together here on this group gathering.
Yeah. I know many initiates on the planet are remembering these regal sides of their true divine nature, the royal heritage of their ancient soul's lineage. And so this is really for that king and queen, grail kings and grail queens, across all spaces, places, times, and dimensions that have ever served the primordial Sophia and the monad, which is the original divine union that birthed the entire cosmos into all of existence. And this is the restoration of these royal guardians that are servant kings and queens. There's no aspect of self-aggrandizement in the reclamation of these thrones. It's retaking your rightful place, as I have said, upon the throne of your destiny, and assuming this leadership mantle as the emperor and the empress as a reflection of your maturation and growth of the integration of all these other archetypal stages, from the medicine woman and medicine man, or high priest and high priestess, or lover and beloved, and the magus, and the muse, and on and on and on. Usually by the time you emerge into the king and queen, you're in that north, right, direction at the top of the medicine wheel. You're in your spiritual adulthood. And so this is for those that are ready to embody that spiritual adulthood in their cells, in their flesh, and as this mantle of this power, right, the coronation of that power of your queenship and your kingship is bestowed upon you. Your psyche is in humble service to your soul. And so it is the sacred rite of passage into the right use of divine power. Therefore, your higher spiritual gifts are activated, and literally you've surrendered the remnants, right, of your human personality, or you've surrendered the remnants of your human identity, and that Ferrari, Lamborghini, peak vehicle of your consciousness is only being, driven by the most pristine emanation of all that you are. So it's like a new gestalt of royalty. And unfortunately, we've seen, the worst atrocities, right, with human royalty. This exact opposite or antithesis of what I'm describing. And so these are the star kings and star queens who have held positions of royalty in other star systems. And we've already successfully ascended other planetary systems. And we've just never done it down here on a planet of such contrast or free will. And therefore, there is the restoration of those ancient regal skill sets, and yet there's zero hubris about it, which will flip all of those connotations of what it means to be a star king or a star queen, because it's in total service to the highest and best good for the entire planet and her beloved, the green man, the logos of God in the body of the biosphere, whatever you want to call him, Pachamama, Pachatata. And so then there's complete power and total humility, and they're all married as one. And that becomes your Hados Gamos Leadership Council on the planet. And that will attract significant amounts of, the quantum financial system to sponsor and fund all of these initiatives, because it keeps it clean. There's no hidden agenda. And there's all that wealth of consciousness, and also all that wealth of interstellar currency, so that we can begin funding all of the destinies and all of the dharmas that are the game changers, right? To restore clean air and, clean water and safety for the children, and, reduction and removal of fossil fuels, you name it, all of these profoundly advanced technologies. So let yourself be upgraded, knowing that as you wake up, you're still holding that precision of the remembrance of what it's actually all for, which has nothing to do with you. And you're not going to see that, right, with the King and Queen of England, because it doesn't exist. It only exists in the galactic Grail Kings or the galactic Grail Queens. And so this is the star family that is assembling this Sunday on the eve of Mary Magdalene's feast day, because of course Mary Magdalene is a Venusian and also Syrian queen. So you get your support from your Venus star family and also your Syrian star family, and the the physical feeling of the coronation, right, of that crown of those jewels of light again upon your head.
Oh, wow. It feels so good. The Star King and the Star Queen, our regalness is here, and it is a remembrance as well. Thank you for that. I know that's going to be exquisite time with you. Is that 2 hours together, your time with Q&A interaction? Yeah?
It's
Wow.
we lovingly put 99 minutes to 111 minutes. It's a guesstimate. It's really, when the group comes together, I'm in service to the group field. And so if the group decides that it's 2 hours, then I show up for what the group is deciding. So it can't necessarily be mandated with some hard timestamp. There's the
Yeah.
estimate of like the journey that we are embarking upon with each other. So that's my willingness to check in with everyone and see their availability and all naked honesty. So that's for the recorded part. And then that becomes available as that transmission for those that are choosing to, bilocate and join us in the replay. Except everyone gets to be in the actual immersion because we know there is no time. Ta-da!
Yes. And the energy field that you create there is exquisite and palpable, and anybody can jump right into it and feel that and experience it as well. Well, thank you for bringing us into our Star Queen and our Star Kingness. We really do feel that. And you mentioned, and this is my last question before I let you go, the quantum financial system. I'm not the only one with a question on this. It sounds
Yes.
wonderful. Can you elaborate on this a little bit for us? Thank you.
Well, if you allow yourself to imagine what is the application of this arc of grace technology to currency. And let's be clear, when I'm languaging quantum financial system, I'm not necessarily referencing maybe the reports that you see on the internet right now. I would rather call it an interstellar financial system. There is this realization that as the divine child, as you are being breastfed by the divine mother, does a child pay for its food when it's a baby? No. All is provided for you by your divine mother, right? That the suckling at mother's breast. And so the very first image on the very first coin that was ever created on the planet is the spiral of the goddess. Infinite energy supply. That sounds fantastical in the continuum as we comprehend the universal laws as they have been presented to us as a species so far. However, you bring in galactic royalty. The kings and queens of this celestial cosmos are galactic royalty. Imagine what the transfer of assets can be. And so, the Wachowskis had this funny film called, Jupiter Ascending, where this, human girl realizes that she's, an authentic reoccurrence of her royal empress, right? Her majesty, and that she's worth, quintillions of dollars and actually owns the entire planet Earth. So, truth is stranger than fiction. We're going to have an influx, right, of the assets of the galactic royal families in service to the healing of the human heart. It's already been promised. That has nothing to do with people who tell you that they've got, everything about the quantum financial system figured out, because that's still a human construct. My construct is the real interstellar, right? Financial system is a gift of grace from our mother, father, parents in heaven, and bringing it through our older brothers and sisters, which is the galactic royal families that agreed to finance and sponsor planetary ascension And so it's the cosmic treasuries. And that's real. And that's how you open up those financial stargates. That'll come in years, right? With those initiates who can handle opening up that self-love stargate. Okay. And then it'll progress to more sophisticated, right? Influx of resource, which is the currency of light. What if money is just divine energy in its chi flow, right? And then you have all of these new quantum technologies that are set up, right, in an unenclosable, right, financial biomimicry worldwide, where all of the exchanges are witnessed through the quantum unified morphogenetic field. And everybody's needs are being provided for by this infusion of milk and honey from what? Mom and dad, source. So it's the opening of, right, where we were taught to compete, or where we were taught there was finite. Well, there's not finite supply, there's infinite supply, except you've got to be kind of on the arc of grace timeline. So these higher financial systems already exist once we graduate to these more sophisticated, right, frequency bandwidths, where we're surfing in those levels of consciousness where that support is actually available. It's kind of like opening up a stargate, and then it's like the vault of Grindelwald's for Harry Potter, who left him, right, his divine inheritance. And he didn't even know he's a wizard, and he didn't even know that he had this living soul family trust fund. And then everything was provided for Harry Potter to go to Hogwarts. And he didn't even know that Hogwarts existed, let alone that he had this inheritance. I love that picture where he gets to see his, the vault that opens up for him. And he's like, oh, this is left for me by my magical mother and my magical father that he didn't even know he had, right? So sorry, but anyways, Harry Potter is the best translation that I have in these, quantum parallel worlds where we are absolutely being sponsored by those that love us very, very much. And it's not a fairy tale.
And I love there that you said it's the self key. The key is self-love. The self is, and that shows us the power of self-love. And so what a beautiful culmination to this Timeline Summit series with this expansion of who we are and what is coming, what is already here that people are feeling vibrationally already. And all we need to do is attune to it. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Particularly on the Amrita, right, of the dragon, who are the keepers of all forms of wealth. Welcome to the dragon lines. You see what I mean? It's all there.
We are really excited for the workshop with you, the time together online with you. So I want to encourage everyone to sign up for that. The email that got you to here is the way to get to it, or you can watch the link in the YouTube channel. You'll be able to access the page that got you here, and you'll be able to join us with Devi Grace in that beautiful event. Devi, thank you so much for this. You always lift us up in miraculous ways and give us this perspective that is so inspiring. And so that is good work, because we have our directions now and our roadmap. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste. May we all bring these legends to life. Aho.
Aho. Big hugs to you, everyone joining us today. Thank you for your bright light. We love you. Namaste. Thank you for listening to this quantum conversation, and thank you for dancing with us to the cosmic heart. As we raise our own vibration, we raise the vibration of the planet. This show is dedicated to you and all awakening hearts, as we are here to shine our bright light and amplify our love. I'm Loren Gailey, and from my sacred heart to yours, I honor your magnificent love and light. This has been a presentation of New Earth One Network, your home for New Earth living. Access information, education, and videos on living from the heart in unity consciousness. Visit newearth1.com.